Hello, boys, girls, and squirrels. This is Daniel, and today I want to talk to you about the famous Pultec EQ. And I'm going to specifically talk about the low-end Pultec trick that you can do, most commonly used on bass drum, sometimes even snare drum. You can do the same trick. So I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to show you inside this session my use of it on this kick drum. And also at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a bonus Pultec trick that you can do on the master bus that's really powerful. So let's get right into it. The Pultec EQ was invented in 1955 by a company called Pulse Techniques in New Jersey. And this is a powerful EQ. I'm using today the Waves Pultec, but there's a version of this in almost every DAW. I think in Logic, in the stock plugins, I think it's called the Logic Tube EQ, I believe is modeled after the Pultec. There's a stock one, I believe, in the Pro Tools, like introductory bundle that comes with Pro Tools. And there's many companies that have reproduced this EQ. So you can use any Pultec to do this, but I'm going to show you with the Waves Pultec today. So I'm going to go ahead and play you a song, and I'm going to start with this Pultec EQ right here. This is on my bass drum track, my kick drum track. I'm going to bypass it. So I'm going to show you the kick drum, or this song with the kick drum bypass, and then I'll tell you when I put it in and see if you can hear the difference in the kick drum. In. Out. In. Okay, so hopefully you're hearing this on good monitors or good headphones and you can hear what's happening. Even on like Apple earbuds, you should be able to hear what's happening down in this low end. It's just adding this beautiful saturation to the lows. Obviously, it's bringing out more of the bottom. So let me show you what I'm doing. And so, by the way, that saturation just running through this plugin. So if you ran through this plugin without boosting or cutting, it has a sound, and it's going to change the sound just by running through it. That, in my opinion, is often a pleasant sound, just even running audio through it. So, but here's what we're doing, and here's the famous low-end trick that you can do on bass. Now, here's what's funny, is the guys who invented this in 1955, in the original Pultec manual from Pulse Techniques, they specifically say in the manual, do not cut and boost frequencies at the same time. So someone somewhere along the line actually found out that when you boost and cut, specifically this low frequency, I've got it set to 60 hertz, it actually does something really cool. And so I'm going to explain a little bit about what it's doing. But with that kick drum, and you just heard the example, what I'm doing is I'm boosting. I've got the boost on 5, I'm at 60 hertz, and I'm attenuating at 6. And it's doing something really cool. Now let me show you, I'm going to show you with this example track right here. I've got it muted, and you don't need to hear it, but you can just see what's happening. So I'm going to pull up this Fab Filter EQ here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Well, let me see, let me pull up my Pultec first so I can bypass it. Okay, so there's my Pultec on my example track. Here's the EQ. And hopefully you can see this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play this. And first and bypass. And so let's go ahead and take the boost to 0, just so you can see what the attenuation is doing. So I'm going to take the boost to 0, and I'm going to take the attenuation to 0. And specifically, I want to show you what the attenuation is doing. So obviously, if the boost and the attenuation were the exact same EQ curve, this boosting and cutting at same frequency should null each other out. But they're at different curves, and specifically you're going to be able to see in the Pro Q2 what's happening, especially with the attenuation. So when we're boosting at the 60, it's giving us that nice boost. I can show you here. So let me go ahead and boost, and you can see it. Let's see. Okay. So that's all I just need you to see this little graph here. We don't need to hear the track. And so this is a kick drum just repeated in eighth notes, just so you can see what's happening. So I'm going to go ahead and boost and watch right here in the low end around 60 hertz. I'm going to go ahead and boost 10 dB or 10 on the Pultec EQ. I don't know if that's 10 dB or not, but okay, it's bypass. So now here's 10 boost. So obviously you can see a huge bump down here at 60. So let me take that down to 0, which is what you would expect. Here's what you may not expect, and here's what makes the boost and attenuation used together work. So I want you to look at these two dots. One dot is set at 120 hertz. The other dot is set at 240 hertz. So if you noticed, that's octaves of 60 hertz. 120 is double, and 240 is the next octave up. And so 120 is B2, 240 is B3. So they're octaves up from the 60, and watch what happens at those octaves when I raise the attenuation. So I'm going to go all the way from 0 to 10 on the attenuation. Here we go. So did you see that? Let me do it again. Go back to 0. Okay, now I'm going to go back down to 10. Okay, and obviously you see that drop in that low end too. But specifically what's happening with this attenuation is it's really affecting the upper harmonics in the 120 region and in the 240 region. Now what happens now when we're attenuating as well as boosting with this EQ and the way the curves are set up is it's cutting the upper harmonics of 60. It's cutting at 120. It's cutting also at 240. And what's happening is it's really tightening that boost at 60. Instead of hearing a boost, a big wide boost around 60, it's really tightening that boost at 60, and it's giving you a more focused low end punch in your kick drums. This is why people love this trick. This is why it's used over and over and over. And so play around with it and how much you want to boost and attenuate. As you can see on this track, I had a boost at 5. I had an attenuation at 6. If you want to do this trick on a snare drum, I'd switch to 100 hertz and play around with it. Snare drums love low end. They love usually more around, I'd say 150 to 200 hertz. But since this Pultec is such a wide boost, you're going to hear that even up and around that nice, around 150 and 200 when you do the boost and cut trick at 100. So try it on snare. I like it on snare, but I love it on kick, and I use it on kick often. It just does something magical that no other EQ can really do. All right, I said I was going to give you one bonus trick. So that's your Pultec low-end EQ trick, is that you can use this EQ to boost and cut at the same time. Whoever figured that out along the way, awesome. Kudos. Thanks for figuring that out for the rest of us engineers. What an awesome trick. And it does something that you just can't do with any other equalizer. So I'm going to give you one last bonus trick, and I'm actually using it in this track. And so here's the bonus trick. And the first person I heard this from was a man named Greg Wells, who's a famous songwriter, a famous music producer. And he specifically, I believe he was even using the Waves Pultec, the one I'm using today, and talking about doing this trick. And so as you can see, this is the Pultec that I have on the master bus, on the mix bus. And you can see I have it set to 20 hertz. So right off the bat, you might be thinking, what in the world? Why would you boost at 20 hertz? It's almost below human hearing, or it is below human hearing. It's more something that we can only feel. But it does something awesome when you just boost a little bit. At the 20 hertz, you can see I've got it boost at 2 and I've got it attenuated at 1. And I like this effect. It doesn't always work on every track, but I like to try this on most tracks. And so often I'm enjoying it, and I'm actually liking what it's doing, and I'm putting this on the master bus. And so again, you can try this at 30. Sometimes I've done it at 30, but I believe the Greg Wells trick, he talks about it at 20 hertz. Boost a little, attenuate a little, and just listen to what's happening. As always, if it sounds good, it is good. So you don't want to just do things because. You want to try stuff like this and see if it actually helps, see if it's actually making your mix better. And in this case, I thought it was actually doing something awesome. And in this, so I'm going to play the track bypass with this bypass, and then I'm going to pop it in. And specifically what I hear it doing is it is adding a little something to the kick, but more than that, it's adding something to the bass, the low end, the synth bass that I have going on in here. It's adding a warmth, it's adding a thickness without sounding muddy. Because you don't want to just add a bunch of bass, you can just all of a sudden have just too much overwhelming low end or too much mud. But this actually is not doing that. I'm not getting mud, but I'm getting warmth and thickness, which I think adds a lot to this track. So let me play the track. I'll play a few seconds with it out, and then I'll pop it in. I'll tell you when I'm going to pop it in. In. Out. In. So it's subtle. Hopefully you're listening again on something where you can hear this difference. It's subtle, but it's definitely doing something cool. It's adding this thickness, this warmth on that bottom that's very pleasant without getting muddy. And so that's really what I would say the Pultec trick is with the using it with the boost, with the attenuation, is you're able to add weight, thickness, saturation in the lows without adding muddiness. And so you adjust attenuation to taste. It's just a little bit on there, but it's making a lot of difference. So I hope that this helps you in your producing and in your mixing and in your mastering. Pultec, it's just such a fun EQ to play around with. There's no other EQ that does what this does with the boost and attenuation. And I hope that you learned something today, and that this video was helpful to you. So I'm signing off. Have a great day.